One of the key setups for resistance band training is the hip attached setup. You can see that I have a yellow band here attached through my hips. Now, why would you want to go ahead and do that? Well, there's several reasons, but here's a few key ones. Number one, it allows you to train with a horizontal resistance, which in turn is going to allow you to go ahead and train hip hinging. Now, hip hinging to me is probably the most important movement pattern that we could ever go ahead and learn, master, and maintain. Because the hip hinge is going to allow us to go ahead and learn how to squat. It's going to learn how to reach. It's going to help us to go ahead and walk. It's going to basically be the movement that we use all the time when we're on our feet. So the hip attached setup is going to go ahead and allow us to train that very easily. Another reason why the hip attachment, it allows us to train lower body strength without having to load our spine with a weight or a vertical load. For example, if I turn around and I position myself here, I can work split squats with the horizontal resistance causing my lower body to go ahead and train and work, but I don't have the load on my spine. So as a result of that, it's a much more joint-friendly way to go ahead and train lower body activities. Reason number three, it provides us the opportunity to work at resisting locomotion type movements. For instance, just marching, or a side shuffle, or we can go ahead and do a simple skater movement. All of these movements allow us to go ahead and train locomotion. Which I don't know about you, but locomotion to me is the number one movement I never want to lose. I always want to be able to walk, so as a result of that, I'm always going to try to figure out different ways to improve and strengthen my locomotion movements. Another reason for going ahead and using this is it's going to free up our hands. So now our hands are free to go ahead and train lower body movements. And why is that important? Well, let's say you have some balance issues. Now you can go ahead and bring in a pole, a wall, or chair, and you can go ahead and work on simple single leg type activities, but you have this additional point of contact. So you have an additional point of contact, so it allows you to go ahead and work on those movements without losing your balance. Balance is going to be key, and you've got to go ahead and find a way to train with balance and then slowly remove the support that you're using to help improve your balance. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is it allows us to go ahead and bring in a vertical load if we want. So now if I want to go ahead and do a reverse lunge, I can do a reverse lunge with the band attached and a vertical load. My hands are free to go ahead and bring that in. So that's another great reason to go ahead and use the hip attached setup. Let me take you through a couple of ways now that you can go ahead and attach or set up for hip attached training. First and foremost, the easiest way is just attach a band and hook it around your hips. Now keep this in mind, you only got about 2 yards to work with. So if the band is at this point tight, I can step out about 2 yards. Now this is a light yellow resistance band, very low resistance. So make sure you go ahead and scale the band resistance so you're not constantly overstretching. If you're going to do more explosive type movements or faster movements where you can't really focus on your distance, I suggest 2 things. Number one, put down land markers or visual markers so you stay within a distance so you don't overstretch your band. Or you can go ahead and very easily scale by just adding in a second band over your hips, and now you have a second band that you can go ahead and push against or resist against. So a single band is perfectly fine to go ahead and use. Just make sure that you're not overstretching the band or taking it out too far. Now let me take you over here and show you a setup that I like to use a lot. Now this is a single band setup, but I have a green extra large band linked into my black band. So when I go to train with this system, it's going to go ahead and primarily stretch the black band. But why do I have the green band? Because it's wider and it's more comfortable on my hips. So now when I train, this is much more of a comfort. And so when I go through and do my movements of locomotion, like skating, or if I do my assisted split squats, or I go ahead and come in and do side lunges, the green band is going to be more comfortable around my hips. And as a result of that, it's just going to be a nicer way to train using the hip attached setup. The final way I'll go ahead and do a hip attached training is by linking two similar sized bands together. I have two black medium bands linked together. Why do I want to do this? Well, number one, it increases the resistance variability because I got a longer band system. So now I can go ahead and challenge myself in multiple resistances because I have a much bigger variability of resistance to work with. But also, because this is now a 82-inch long system versus a 41-inch long system, I have more room to work. So this works great for locomotion training or exercises where you're actually going to go through a distance or an amplitude of movement and you don't want to overstretch your band. So the linked up of similar bands is also going to go ahead and be a great way to do hip attached training. So there you go, hip attached training. I think it's a great way to go ahead and train your lower body specifically, but also a great way to go ahead and bring in locomotion training, which we've already talked about is extremely important when it comes to training for longevity.